What is grief, if not love persevering? I don't think any line from a Marvel Disney product has resonated so much with me than this one. The delivery of that line from Paul Bettany is so beautiful. His performance in the series, along with Elizabeth Olsen, has been absolutely stunning. I have to say, I was very skeptical about the shows when they were announced at the San Diego Comic-Con in 2019, particularly this show. For those of you who have seen Avengers Infinity War, at the end of that film, the Vision is pretty much dead. I thought to myself, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do? What other stories do they have to tell in a post-Avengers Endgame world? And what they did with WandaVision was something I did not expect. They brought these larger-than-life and extraordinary superheroes down to a more human level. The writers developed and looked further into these two characters who were always supporting players in the background. WandaVision is very different from what Marvel has done before, even though it does fall on similar tropes. For me, I was very happy and satisfied that each episode came out weekly instead of having it all come out at once. I don't think the show would have had the same effect if we all binged it in one go. This show will be talked about all year. I hope all of it is positive, as some people online have been very disappointed with how certain aspects turned out, particularly Evan Peters as Quicksilver. Also, many theories haven't come to pass, and I think from my perspective, a lot of people got caught up with what they wanted and not what they needed. I get why people are disappointed, and some of it is valid, but from my point of view, I was pleased with what happened. If another big MCU character showed up, it would have been a mistake. We all know that the Scarlet Witch is going to show up in Doctor Strange 2. Everyone prior to the show being released was going to be watching a show that was going to set up Doctor Strange 2, and it really wasn't that. I think if another big MCU character showed up, it would have been a mistake. Someone like Doctor Strange showing up would have amounted to nothing more than a glorified extended cameo. This would have distracted the writers headed by Jack Schaefer from what they were really doing. Even though some seeds were laid down for what is to come in Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I enjoyed and loved that this was a self-contained story about Wanda overcoming the loss of everyone in her life, particularly Vision. The approach that was taken to deconstruct and develop her character made for an enriching watch. I do feel the writers did a fantastic job with this. They built upon and developed Wanda nicely and gave her a stronger arc that the audience can understand and relate to. If she is going to be a player in future phases and movies in the MCU, this needed to happen. And it needs to happen for the other characters that are going to show up in future films, I hope. The way Wanda's character is developed across the 9-episode run of WandaVision felt natural, and it was fun and moving to watch. The performance given by Elizabeth Olsen was captivating and powerful, an incredibly nuanced performance. The show really got my brain working about what was going to happen in the other episodes and how it was going to relate to the wider story post-Avengers Endgame. I get the fact that some promises were made for the audience in the way the filmmakers teased certain aspects, like characters showing up in future episodes. In some cases, these never amounted to much. I wasn't too bothered though. It seems that a majority of the disappointment stems from most of those theories not coming true. In my opinion, WandaVision didn't need to have a bunch of other characters show up and crowd up the narrative with their presence. And this show was all about Wanda and her overcoming her trauma. That's what I didn't expect the show to be about, and I was very enthralled by the decision Jack Schaefer and her writing team took with the show. I am sorry people were upset and disappointed that there were some opportunities missed, but I think there's no point looking at what they didn't do. We should look at what they did do and move on from it and look forward to what is coming next. WandaVision was an intimate, independent tale from a new, larger story in the MCU, despite giving small, eerie hints of what is to come. There was a real aim to explore Wanda and her grief over the loss of Vision. In the first 4 episodes, we didn't know what to expect from this sitcom fantasy world Wanda was in, or how she got there. Maybe she was a prisoner, and even I had a theory she made some Faustian deal to be in this world with a resurrected Vision, and I was fine with that not being the case. Afterwards, it seemed that she was in control of this world and keeping Westview's citizens prisoner through mind control. There were still some questions that needed to be answered. Gradually, over the course of the series, they were answered. And I enjoyed every part of that. Of course I knew Catherine Hahn's Agnes, aka Agatha Harkness, was going to be a villain of sorts, but the way they revealed it was still surprising. She was not the next big bad or the next Thanos. A lot of people assumed it was this character from the comics called Mephisto, who did not show up. Maybe he will if the new Marvel films stay in the world of the mystical arts and take things a little further. This is an interesting route to take, and it is an inspired choice to use WandaVision as the first stepping stone. Despite all the MCU familiarities, this is the best thing that Marvel has done in a while. It was magnificent storytelling. Everything was developed gradually and steadily revealed. From my perspective, it incorporated the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The last episode is all about acceptance. Wanda accepts that she cannot stay in this fantasy world, and the vision that she created out of her grief on the plot of land he bought for them has to go. She needs to move on. As much as she wants him to exist and retreat from the larger world that mostly fears her, she can't. Her chaos magic that Agatha talks about is problematic for the world, and Wanda realizes she needs to further understand it, and most likely hone it. And from the looks of it, in the post-credit scene, she could become quite villainous. I never saw Agatha as the villain, but as someone who had antagonistic tendencies and was willing to play around with Wanda to get her to understand who she was and take her powers away from her for the greater good. Nobody seems like a hero or the villain, except for Hayward, played by Josh Stamberg, who wanted to use Vision for his own purposes. But Wanda was no villain, but a woman dealing with so much hurt, and it affected others. She was not forgiven by the townsfolk. I mean, why would they? Monica Rambeau maybe forgives her or doesn't forgive her, but at least she is understanding of why Wanda did what she did. This universal way WandaVision looked at grief was something that for me made the show feel very special and very watchable. For someone who has suffered heavy loss, there was a lot that heavily resonated with me, as I feel it has with others who have lost someone they deeply love and care about. The show moved me in ways in how we process our grief, and how often we fall back into our memories to where we were once happy. In Wanda's case, it was the various TV shows and sitcoms she watched with her family. This for me made WandaVision one of the best things that Marvel has done in a while, even if it wasn't completely 5-star perfection. I look forward to more self-contained stories in the MCU that aren't building up to a greater story like Thanos and the Infinity Stones. I should point out, from a consumer point of view, WandaVision has done a good job in showing that we should be careful about making too many theories. We can't always expect that what we have theorized about will happen. It can leave us feeling disappointed. We shouldn't expect too much and take it all as it comes. Hopefully people will take that into consideration and not feel too resentful. Sometimes these things don't have to be big comic book extravaganzas like Avengers Endgame. They can be humanistic and character-driven stories. It is the first real time where I have been emotionally engaged with what is going on in a comic book adaptation, and the way they tackled certain themes and messages was beautifully handled. This is coming from someone who has experienced loss in his life. Thank you very much for watching. Please do feel free to check out the rest of our YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, which you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and Stitcher. Thank you very much again. Have a good day and stay safe.